Welcome back to another Unreal Engine 5 tutorial. Last time we were working on a cinematic blueprint in which if you entered a volume, the game would trigger a cinematic with camera movement and whatever other types of animation you want to have happen in your game. Today we're going to elaborate on that as promised by creating a subtitle widget that you might find something like this in, I think Legend of Zelda has one. I know Animal Crossing definitely has one. It's basically just a subtitle track that provides dialogue and then pauses the game or pauses the cinematic until you want to advance it again. So this one is going to be a bit of a doozy, as creating that subtitle widget is a bit complicated. So grab your coffee or whatever, because it's going to be a long one. So let's get right into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a new structure. We're going to call this structure Subtitles. And then we are going to create a data table. I'm not sure where the data table lives naturally. Oh, it's in miscellaneous. Okay, so just right here, data table. We are going to select Subtitles. Now we haven't actually created anything in Subtitles, so we're going to have to set that up in a minute. And if you hear any sniffing or see any random characters appear on my screen like those did just now, I promise I'm not doing any illicit substances over here. It's just my cat Jack. He has an uncanny ability to pop up when he is least wanted. But of course he's always wanted. He's giving me kisses. Okay. So that's enough of that. So for our data table, let's call that CIN new level sequence, because this is going to match up with the level sequence we created last time, which we didn't bother naming. And then we'll just underscore sub. And we'll just add that CIN to the beginning of new level sequence just to keep things organized. Okay, so let's open up our structure. The first thing we need is a character name, and that will be text. Next will be name color, and that is going to be a color. Finally, we will need a subtitle, and that will be text as well. Save that, close it. Hopefully we never need to see it again. That reminds me. Let's disconnect the input actions we created last time. That was for a specific use case, and this time we're just going to have a button on screen that we can click, and that will be what advances our cinematics from now on. So compile our player character, and that's where the input actions are, if you remember. Close that. And then let's open up our new level sequence. Okay, so as you can see, we've got several things here. We have our character name, our name color, and our subtitle. And what this object is basically just our subtitle track. So this will You can add as many columns as you need for however elaborate you want this object to get. Like if you wanted to add like little icons that showed characters' faces or something, you would need to reference them in here. But yeah, so the way I have it set up is I have a character's name. That name has a color so that the subtitle will change colors depending on who's talking, or at least the name's color will change. The subtitle won't change its color. Okay. Don't need to give the row name a name because it doesn't deserve a name. And I don't even know if you can give it a name. Oh, yeah, you can. Okay. But let's just not mess with that. I suppose you could set the character name and row name if you wanted, but I'm not going to. And I've written some fantastic sample dialogue for this cinematic. Our first character's name is going to be Jonko. And I think Jonko's kind of a sickly puke green kind of name. And Jonko, he's kind of a piece of shit. So his first thing is all about Jonko, and he's just going to say, "Hey, it's me, your friendly neighborhood Jonko. Want to buy my wares?" Hit return to save that. Make sure you always hit return because if you don't, it'll just clear out whatever you just wrote. Next person is going to be you, the player. And since I know virtually everything there is to know about you, I can safely say that your color is bright pink. And you know that Jonko's pretty self-absorbed, so you're just going to say, "Oh, hey, Jonko, how's it going?" And Jonko, not taking the hint, is going to push you to buy some wares. He's going to say, pretty good. I sure could use a friendly purchase of my wares." Let's type in Jonko. Let's copy his color. Actually, we don't need to copy it. We can just drag them up here and save them. So there's our two colors. And just retrieve them like that. Gonna add a final row. And that is you, the player. And you're already on the edge of your seat from questing or whatever, and you just can't handle another one of Jonko's sales pitch, so you can't even speak right. So you're just going to scream at the top of your lungs, "Leave me alone, Jonk." Save that. Worthy of an Oscar, if I do say so myself, and I do. So now let's create a new thing. This is going to be the beating heart of the widget, and that's because it is the widget. It's going to be a widget, and we're going to call it W_subtitles. Open that up. Let's add a few things. First, we're going to get a canvas panel. Then we're going to get a vertical box. Going to control click and drag out this bottom right handle all the way to 100%. Now we're going to take this top left one and drag it down, let's say to 70%. Then we are going to get some text. Where does text live? I don't know. Just search for it. Text. In this text, we are going to call name, and it is a variable. I'm going to drag in some more text. It's going to be called subtitles. It is also a variable. And then we're going to, Jack, what are you doing? Come on, buddy. Then we're going to get a button. Drop that in there. I'm going to call that button. Let's align it to the right. And you know what, let's put some text in our button. And that doesn't need to be a variable, but let's call it button label. And we'll just say next. Let's make our button nice and blue, if you want. And then for our subtitles block, let's make that fill. And our font, let's not make it bold, let's just make it regular since it's our subtitle. And for our text block, let's just align that to the left. We don't need that to fill up the whole thing. And then I think also on our subtitle block we want to auto wrap text because we don't want it to just fly off the end of the screen. And then finally, let's actually just drag, control click and drag in our box to about, I think that's 90% and 10%. And it should snap on there pretty easily if you hold down control. And now widget blueprints also have the regular type of blueprint nodes you're familiar with by now. You can access those by going, instead of designer, we're going to hit graph. And it's fairly similar to your standard blueprint. However, you'll notice that the things that we declared to be variables in the designer have appeared on the left already. And instead of begin play, we have construct time. So that's the time that the widget is constructed, and pre-construct, which is helpful for when you need something to be set up before the widget gets created. I don't think we're going to need pre-construct for this. I don't think we're going to need tick for this either. So for event construct, we are going to first set input mode UI only, get our player controller, our in widget to focus, we're just gonna get button. Doesn't really matter because we're just using our mouse for this. And that's good for now. Let's implement our cinematic interface. Whoops, that is not the right thing. Implemented interfaces, BPI, cinematic interface. Compile that. And the first thing we're going to do is, let's test our button. So, button. Over here on the right, we have our events. So we're going to do on clicked. And we're just going to print string. And back on our cinematic blueprint that we created last time, at the end of actor begin overlap, we're going to create a widget, and that will be of class subtitles, or W subtitles. Going to promote that to a variable, call that variable widget. And we're going to add it to the viewport. And then we're going to set anchors in viewport. And you can just split the struct pin on that and just set 1 and 1 for our maximum values. So let's test out what we have so far. Great, so it adds the widget to our screen, and when we click next, it does that little print string. Before we forget, let's just add a Jonko into our project. Jonko likes to hang out on ramps because people need to access them, but they can't get up them without talking to him first. Okay, and then just so that we can finish off our with our BP cinematic blueprint, just going to drag our widget out, and then on end cinematic we're going to remove from parent. And we're going to set input mode game only. Get our player controller. And then finally, I already have it created here, but you're going to want to create this variable. It's called Subtitles, and it's exposed. And it's going to be of type data table. And what this is when you click on your blueprint in the editor, you have your level sequence, which is that level sequence we created last time, and then the subtitles will be the subtitle track that's going to be assigned to it. So anyway, grab that variable, pull it out, get them, and then we're going to convert that to a validated get, and then right after play you're going to plug that in to is valid, and that way if there is a subtitle track it will add the widget, and if there is not a subtitle track it will not display that. Okay, so in our subtitles, I'm going to create a new thing, variable. We're going to call that Level, well, let's just call it LSP because it is a level sequence player. I think we want this to be exposed on spawn. That's over on the right. And I guess it wants to be instance editable too, so make sure you do that. Now back on our cinematic, that didn't do what it was supposed to do. Maybe let's try exposing to cinematics as well. Okay, there we go. So back here, actually we don't want it to be a level sequence player, we want it to just be a cinematic object. And we're going to make that a BP cinematic. So back here, let's recompile this. And you just have to hit compile a bunch until this input appears. And we're just going to make that a reference to self. So on event construct, we're going to get our cinematic object, we're going to get subtitles, and then we are going to promote this to a variable and call it subtitle. Subtitle data table. Plug that in. So let's right-click on Advanced Cinematic on Interfaces, implement that. And now we can finally add Advanced Cinematic to the end of our construct. Now you notice when you type in Advanced Cinematic, you have calls to functions, and you also have calls to the interface. I think we're going to use what I used here, and what I believe is correct is to use call function and not the interface itself. Okay. So on our onClicked, we're going to create a branch. Let's get our cinematic object. Let's get our sequence player. Check if this is playing. Plug that into our condition. And if it has paused itself, we are going to advance the cinematic as well. That's also going to be a call for function and not interface. Okay, that's looking good. Let's try that out and see how it works. So as you can see, I'm clicking next and nothing's happening because it hasn't paused. And when I'm clicking it and it is paused, it still isn't working. So what are we doing wrong that's causing this problem? Let's print a string to see if the click is registering. It is. Oh, well, I suppose that would help. Our advanced cinematic function is not actually doing anything. So let's grab our cinematic object and our sequence player from that object, and we're going to play that. Nothing happens because it hasn't paused yet, but once it is paused, we can advance. Excellent, and it returns control to us because we set that back here in cinematic. Okay, so now for the actual subtitling of this Subtitles widget. First thing we need is subtitle position, or a variable called subtitle position. It's going to be an integer. Compile it, set its default value to -1. Drag that out. Get that, then type in ++, which will give us an increment, and all that does is adds 1 to it and then sets the variable to that new value. And so we're going to have a bunch of variables in here, so let's set its category to text. Keep all of our text-related stuff in there. Next thing we're going to do is create a new variable. It is going to be called built text. And it is going to be of type text, and it will be placed in that text bucket as well. Set that, leave it empty. Let's duplicate our built text variable. But we're going to rename this new one current character. And by character, I don't mean a player character, I mean a character in the text sense of the word. Plug that into the end, and we're going to set that to empty as well. Going to create a new variable. This is going to be a string this time. And this will be a subtitle, or be called subtitle array. And then we're going to make it an array. Drag it into our text category. Pull it out. I'm going to clear it, because that's what we're doing with these as well. Then we are going to create a new variable called name color. It is going to be a color, and it's just going to be a single. Put that in text as well. And is it? Oh, I'm sorry, it's not going to be a color. It is going to be a linear color, because apparently those are different. Okay, so what have we done here? Subtitle position is what, that's telling it what subtitle line it actually needs to be reading and printing to our screens. And that's why we set it to -1 initially, because we want it to read the first line. If we set it to 0, which is what it is by default, it wouldn't read our first line and it would just skip ahead to our second line. Built text is basically what the final subtitle will look like once all of the text is written to the screen. However, in this widget, what we want to do is have it type each character out one by one, and that's what this current character represents, the character that's actually being printed to the screen. The subtitle array is the entire array of characters that are going to be printed onto the screen and built. And then our name color is the color of the name that is going to be on screen. Okay. So now that we've done all that, we are going to, now let's create a custom event because these are going to get pretty big. First custom event is going to be called set character name. So we're going to call that. First thing from here is we're going to get our subtitle data table. We are going to get data table column as string, and we want our name color. I think that's what we called it, right? Let's just check. Yes, we called it name color. Okay. So we are going to, from our return value, get a, I think it's a copy, yeah. And then we're going to plug in our subtitle position in there. So that is going to get the color at the subtitle that we're currently on. And then we're going to set our name color. And we should be able to just string to color. Yes, we should be able to just do that. And that'll set our color. Next up, we're going to duplicate this, plug that in, but our property name is going to be character name instead of name color. Let's get a copy from our return value. Plug in our subtitle position again. Then from that return, we are going to write chop. We are going to chop 85 characters. Then from that value, we are going to left chop, and we are going to chop 2 characters. What right and left chop do is they remove characters from the character name data table column, and that's because our data table has a bunch of extra values in each cell that we don't want to display on screen. There's a bunch of text manipulation nodes like this, and unfortunately they are all fairly confusing, but right chop and left chop I have tested ahead of time, so we know that they will do us well. Okay, so back at our return value from get data table column as string, we're going to get a copy again. Let's grab our subtitles, and we're going to add -1 to that, and then plug that in there. Let's duplicate this right chop and left chop, and plug that in here. And then we are going to promote this top left chop return value to character name array. And it ironically is not an array. Yeah, so let's actually not call it array, let's just call it character name. Plug that in there. And we're going to branch. And we are going to get a triple equals, which is equals exactly. And that will be our condition for our branch. And yeah, if that is false, now first let's grab our left chop. We're going to promote our left chop from our bottom left chop here. The return value we're going to promote to variable, and we will call that name cache. Put that into our text as well. You know what, let's rename character name just to name since, well, no, yeah, it's fine, let's just leave it. So let's plug in false to our name cache here. Then all the way back up here, we're going to get a copy. Let's duplicate this subtitle position and adding -1 to that, plug that in there. Then we're going to string to color again. And we're going to drag this all the way over here, reroute it. And we're going to promote that to a variable, and that is going to be name color cache. Plug that in there. Now, let's get our data table again. Get data table column as string. Property name is going to be subtitle. Plug that in there. And we're going to get a copy again. Get our subtitle position. Right chop that off 85 again, and then left chop 2, and then we're going to branch triple equals again, and we can just leave that second empty, so we want to check if this is empty or not. And if that is true, we are going to set our character name to our name cache, and we're going to set our name color to our name color cache. Okay, so what is all this done here. So order is not particularly important, but at the beginning here, we're basically just getting the correct character name and color for our for who's talking. At this branch here, we're checking to see if the same character is talking or not, because if the same character is talking, we don't need to do anything. But if they are, we want to change them. And then over here, we're just getting the correct subtitle. And there is a little bit of a bug where if you have an empty subtitle, then the name may disappear. So that's what the caches are for, is to make sure that the name doesn't disappear if nobody's talking. That sounded a little confusing. I guess we'll see how it looks as we move forward. Before we keep moving on with blueprint work, let's go back into our designer and let's add a little animation. So we're going to create a new animation and we're going to call it new name. And on new name, we are going to track name. Let's just add a transform. We can add a keyframe to rotation, or maybe we can't. Oh, okay. A little confusing. I don't know why it's like that, but let's just can add a frame to the start, add a frame to the end, a keyframe to the beginning and end, and we're just going to make it kind of turn a little bit, say 10 degrees one way, back to, and then -10 the other. And let's make that, oh, it's already nice and smooth. Nice. So this animation is just going to play whenever a new character talks, and that what that'll do is just kind of make sure that the viewer knows that a new character is talking. So let's go back into our graph. At the very end on our false, let's play an animation. The animation will be oh, there it is. Okay. So a new section showed up that was collapsed. That's why I didn't see it. But new name is that animation we created. So just drag that out there. Put that in our in animation. And I think the rest of these are okay. And then let's just put a reroute here. Plug that. Plug all three of these in here because we're going to put a custom event at the end of this, but we haven't made it yet. And then our new custom event is going to be called write subtitles. Yep. And then we will just call write subtitles at the end of our character name creation function. So in write subtitles, first thing we're going to do is get our data table, get the column as a string, property name is going to be subtitle. Let's get a copy of that string at our subtitle position. Gonna right chop 85. Gonna left chop 2. Gonna triple equal that. Branch. From the true position, we are going to set subtitle array. Going to make an array. And I think we can just leave that empty. Just going to leave this empty for now. We might need to, well, yeah, let's just leave it like that, actually. We might need to come back and change this, though. Then we're going to set our character name to blank. And we're going to create a new variable and call it widget hidden. And it will be a bool. And we're going to hide it. Yeah, okay, so already we see what the problem was. So we're going to make an array. Does that work? Yeah, it does, so we're just going to leave that. No, you know what, let's just do this. Okay, so we're going to promote that to a variable, and we're going to call that blank string. Okay. So on our false node, we're going to branch, going to get our widget hidden. If that is true, we're going to unset widget hidden. And then we are going to set our subtitle array. And from our left chop, we're going to get character array from string, plug that into our subtitle array, and then plug that into our false. So now we're going to do something fancy. I wish I could remember where I got this from, because I was looking this up online many years ago and somebody did this. So I wish I could give credit to that person, but if I figure it out, I'll put that in the description or the comments. But we are going to get a for each loop, and we're going to double click that. And that will take us to our standard macros. So we're going to find our for each loop, which is right here. I'm going to hit Control C to copy it, go back into our subtitles, and going to paste it. I'm going to rename this for each loop with delay. And what this will do is this is going to be the thing that actually types each character out on the string. It's pretty easy to make. I'm just going to pull out from here delay. Duration, you're going to come up in here and add a new node to the inputs. And then it's already looped back for us up to this branch. So back in our event graph, drag out our new for each loop with delay. Plug that in there. And how long should that be? Could probably just leave it at 0 because it's still like a frame of delay regardless. So let's leave it at 0 and we'll see what happens. Let's grab we could just grab it from here, our subtitle array, plug that in there. Our array element, we're going to get to text, which is a string. The loop body, we're going to set that to current character. Plug that into our loop body. And we're going to branch. Going to triple equals. But that's a text. We don't want a text. Let's grab our blank string. That triple equals that. And get our subtitle array, get a copy. I think we can just leave this at 0. And if that is true, we are going to, well, first let's create a new function. We'll call that function writeText. And if it's true, we will add our writeText function in there. And if it's false, we are going to play a sound 2D. I'm not going to set anything up with this sound, but basically, we'll call this type sound. Basically, if you want, you can go find some sound effect online. I recommend it being extremely short, and then you can just set that here. Oh, look, it's already got sound built in. So let's find a really short one. Gizmo handle click sounds pretty good. So that'll play every time a character is printed to the screen. Okay, so back at completed, and we're just going to set our built text to none and our current character to none. Or empty, I should say. Now let's open up writeText. Fairly simple. We're just going to grab our subtitles, set text, plug that in here. Our in text. First, let's get our built text, plug that to our set text in text input. God, there's a lot of tongue twisters here. From what we're going to set our built text to is going to be a toText string. Okay, so that problem arose because I had actually set the wrong subtitle track here. So yeah, that should work fine. Okay, so that was pretty good. There's a couple of things we can do to make this a little better. You'll notice that there were some slashes that appeared in the text. I think that was because it was using a curled apostrophe, maybe. So let me try just replacing the apostrophes. Unreal's text display is a little funky sometimes. No, that's not it. Interesting. Okay, so it's actually the prime mark, or the mark you can make on your keyboard that Unreal doesn't like. What it wants is a curled apostrophe. That's pretty annoying, but that's just how it is. So you'll have to go search for a curled apostrophe on Google and copy that and paste that if you want to use quotes or apostrophes. Okay, so that's one little issue done. When we're finished with the cinematic and we've reached our final thing, I think it would be good if the text in the button changed so we know that when we click it, it will end the cinematic. So let's make our button label a variable by checking this checkbox here. And on our first, actually, let's add back our tick event in. Gonna grab our button label and get our cinematic object and the sequence player from the cinematic object, and if that is playing, we're going to set the opacity of the button label to 0.5. And if it is not, whoops, come on back. And if it is not, we are going to set the opacity to 1. Then let's get the length. Well, let's pull it out from here. On event advance cinematic, let's get our subtitle array and get the length of that. And let's just print that at the end of that just to see 69. Nice. I have no idea how that could possibly be, but that's what it's telling us. Oh, is that the number of characters? Okay, so that's not what we want then. So let's get actually our subtitle data table. Get rows. Sense. So we're going to want to, it's a little bit of a roundabout way, but we're going to want to get the length of our, from the subtitle data table, we're going to get the data table row names, and then we're going to get the length of that array. Let's plug that in up here, and then we're going to just print that out to see, because oftentimes 0 is the first number that Unreal counts from, so we just want to see how many rows Unreal counts this as 3 or 4. It counts it as 4. Okay. So let's just promote length to a new variable. We'll call it subtitle. Let's call it last subtitle. Put that in there. And we don't need to put that on advanced cinematic. We can actually just put that on construct, I think, or construct. So we're going to put that on construct, and we're going to get our subtitle position, or yeah, get our subtitle position, and if that is greater than or equal to our last subtitle, we are going to set the text of our, sorry, not our name, of our button label. We're going to call that just end cinematic. Let's see if that works. No, that did not. Okay, so why didn't that work? If the subtitle position is greater than or equal to. Okay, what subtitle position do you think we're on? You think we're on 0, so why? That is right. Okay, let's just try next. Okay, let's reverse those. Okay, so we have our next. Very strange. Okay, let's disconnect that and let's just print this and bend. Put a slash in B. Get our current position and our final position. Ah, that is the reason. Okay, it's because it thinks that it should be 0. So that might be because it's happening a little too quickly. So let's just put a delay until next tick. Or if you're on an Unreal 4, you can just put delay with 0 seconds. Nope, that's not it. Okay. So maybe this does need to be on and cinematic. Okay, that's better. Okay, now let's try it. And I need to switch these two back. So the first one is going to be end, second one is going to be next. Okay, that didn't seem right, but I think that was just because how we have our subtitles sequence set up. Yeah, it's because we don't have anything. We need an event at the end. So remember, we need to copy this event, paste it here at the end. And then I think you want to have one row per track. So we'll just add a new row and we'll leave it blank for now. Let's see how that looks. Nope, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Okay, so I think we just need to subtract 1 from our position here. Probably because we set it initially to -1. Maybe we need to add 1. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. And then we also need to, in our sequence, make sure that this is one frame before it ends there. So one more try. And okay. What's the issue here? I think we can get rid of this row. And then let's get rid of this as well. Still not quite where we want it to be. There we go. Okay. So yeah, that's something to note, is that at the end you are going to... Why are you giving me problems? What is the deal? Yeah, that looks fine. Okay, back on your cinematic, I don't know why, but for some reason it's throwing an error. So just validate your sequence player variable, and that should fix that. Okay, well, there you have it. A little complicated to set up, a little bit of a pain in the ass to use, but we have a editable subtitle track, and all you have to do is create your cinematics. Let's get that out of there. All you have to do is create a level sequence, and you can animate it and just put in your sequencer events and then this will sync up to those events. If you have any problems with this blueprint, just give me a ring. By ring, I of course mean comment on the video, and I'll try and help you out if you have issues. Yeah, that sums it up for this video. Let me know what kinds of videos you'd like to see me make next in the comments, and till next time, peace.